So welcome. I'm going to chat for a couple of minutes while you're here. Please introduce yourself in this chat. I know there's the lobby chat as well. So this will be the chat for this opening session. And I'm Saber. I'm he, him. I'm a middle and high school computer science teacher in New York City. What else? I have a couple of kids. I live in Queens. I live in Jackson Heights. I am excited this summer to learn some WebGL and some OpenGL. Hopefully I can make some time for that. So that's my goals. So feel free to, throw your information in. Oh, now we have two closed captioning. Okay, I'm gonna turn the slides off. That was the other reason I was panicking, folks, because I couldn't figure out the captioning and that made me very nervous. Okay, but Zoom's live captioning should be on. If you don't see it, it should be at the somewhere in your Zoom controls. If you can't find it, please ask in the chat and let folks can maybe find it for you. Okay, so I'm going to get into it because we just have a few minutes before Frieda comes on and presents. So I'm going to jump into it. These slides are available at that link over there. I'll put it in the chat in a second. Give me a second when I'm done to do that. Yeah, as you're waiting, please do introduce yourself in the chat. And in the workshops, you can rename yourself, because the workshops will be just regular Zoom meetings. In there, you can just introduce yourself that way in there. Moving on. What's the point of CCFest? So, well, I don't know how many of you are new. I've seen some familiar names, but I've seen a lot of new names, so that's exciting to tell you a little about CCFest. The goal here is to have a space where you get to have fun with code, creativity with code. So things you want to emphasize is, using code to do other things like art and math and science and self-expression. And we really wanted to make a warm, welcoming environment. And that's why we try to make it free. We really think about making it inclusive and diverse. And it's really low cost, run by mostly volunteers. Folks are getting a little stipend, but their time is probably a lot more valuable than the modest stipend we have. And then if you're interested in finding a little bit more, we have some hashtags. You can kind of see some of the past events in social media. So that is welcome to kind of the general idea behind CCFest. It started as an in-person event. We started at NYU ITP in 2016. It's actually how I got involved with the processing community. And then, unfortunately, with COVID, we had to stop. And then since 2020, we've been doing events on Zoom. This was our 5th or 5th event, and we moved it from regular Zoom to Zoom events, which is a complicated question. If you have feedback, please let us know about it if it was hard to navigate and all that, and we'll try to help you navigate it today. But it felt like for concurrent sessions, that was the way to go, where we have sessions happening at the same time. A couple of more things before Frieda takes over. I was really inspired, and I think a lot of folks that work on this event and volunteer with this event and participate in the event are really inspired by P5 project, and especially the community statement. It's one of the first things I read in 2016 when I started getting involved, and it really spoke to me when I was becoming a computer science teacher and really wanted to find that home for what I cared about. And this is what I read and really has spoken to me, and I think it's maybe changed a little bit since then. So this is the old copy of it that I saw, and take a second to sort of read it to yourself. It's really sort of what a lot of us sort of are guided by. And then more specifically, we have a code of conduct. It got emailed to you. Hope you have a chance to take a look at the full one, but this page has some of the key points here of what we're shooting for how we should behave ourselves. It is a virtual conference. One reason why registrations were complicated is to make sure that, the folks that register are the ones to hear. We want to make sure it's a safe space for everyone. If you run into anything that needs more attention, please send an email to ccfest@processing.org, and Marie and I will jump on it. And actually, if Marie and Ju want to try to, although maybe I have to. Yeah, Marie, if you're in the backstage, so if you're able to come to the main room and do it, or Ju, we'll have to get you on camera. I'd love to, but we may not be able to do that if they're a little bit lost as well. But I want to tell you that this is a group event and a sort of volunteer event. And a lot of folks help make it possible. The folks are, the workshop leaders, the keynotes. We got a lot of, I work for processing, and members of the process community provide a lot of help in making this event happen. More specifically, not processing directly related, but we also have a lot of presenters from this class, Code Decolonized, that we published a blog post about. And then we have volunteers. They'll be helping out in the sessions, trying to make sure the sessions are running well. So those names are there. And then thank you all for, one, for coming, and then you had a chance to donate. Thank you for donating. If you did, we love donations, large and small. So thank you for that. Okay, so Marie is there. So Marie, if you wanna, I don't know if you're able to jump on mic and camera and say hi before I introduce Frieda and we keep rolling.
I can say hello, but I can't turn on my camera. It's disabled. But hello, everyone. Welcome to CC Fest. We're really excited that you're here.
Cool. Sorry about that. I don't know what we're still learning. And also, last I should mention, Juke Park has been really helping with a lot of things as well. They're volunteer, and they made that really nice sort of Zoom events guide that you might have seen, or made some additional pages to the CC Fest website to help folks navigate. But I'm going to stop talking because, actually, I'm not going to completely stop talking. I'm going to take one more minute and say that the schedule got emailed to you. Hopefully it makes sense. We're sort of at the early period. In New York, it's 12:10, so I'm about to hand it over. After Frieda's done, you'll go back to the lobby and from there navigate to the sessions, and there's a little screenshot of how you find the sessions. And then Marie is running a community hangout and break in the middle. And then, actually, we should probably get to that slide too before we're done. And then session 2, that's where those workshops are. And then could he just come in on, and Marie is coming on at the end to say goodbye to folks. Okay, so I think, actually, yeah, so maybe Marie, if you just want to say something about this slide before I introduce Frieda, about what we're going to do for break.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to jump into a session together, and we're going to do a little stretch, have a sip of water, remind ourselves to just take some breaths, and then we're going to see if there are people that we want to talk to. It'll be casual, it'll be playful, and a little bit experimental because we're still learning about Zoom events. But we'll all say hi. It'll just be a little space for people to connect if they want to.
Cool. Okay, so I am now going to introduce Frieda. I'm excited to hear from them. They work for Kapor Center. They're a researcher. They have expertise in computer science applies to Native Americans, a topic I think is very important, but we really haven't talked about in this community. And one of the goals of our keynote is to kind of learn more about this wider community that we're in, where creative code and computer science for all and computer science access is a big conversation that a lot of folks are having. So I'm going to let Frieda kind of tell us more here. Thank you, Frieda, for making time. They're coming in from Oakland, which is very early. A bunch of folks are coming in from the West Coast. I really appreciate those folks, and then folks who are in the rest of the world joining us. All right, Frieda, if you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm having also the start video thing. Let's see if I can.
Yeah, try again.
Here we go. There we go. Here I am. Thank you, Saber, first of all, for that wonderful introduction. And I appreciate everyone for joining me today from all of these different countries. Let me go ahead and get my slides together here. Okay, hopefully you all can see my desktop.
Looks great.
Awesome. So, Uvla Satkun Nakserkulunga Kaimaruten. I wanted to greet you all, first of all, in my native language. As Saber said, I'm Inupiaq. I'm from the Northwestern Territories of Alaska. I'll say more about that in a second. I start off always with a land acknowledgement, and this is really just to ground us in where we are in our respective territories. So I see there's a lot of folks from California. Shout out to everyone out here in the Ohlone territories. That's where I am today. I'm in the village site of Huichin, Lashon Ohlone territories. I always want to follow up with offering ways for folks to be able to contribute to the ongoing sovereignty efforts of the people whose lands I'm on. So I'm accountable to these folks, of course, living and working here, and they have something called a Shumi land tax. If you live here, and even if you don't, you can contribute to their rematriation efforts. And there's the link, but you can also just look up Lashawn Aloni and you'll come right to it. Of course, we're not the only colonized people on these territories. So I always also like to acknowledge and appreciate and send solidarity to folks of African descent who are here, who are in the diaspora. So I just wanted to offer a little bit of thanks for somebody in particular in her organization. Asantewaa Boykin is a nurse in Nisenan territories in Sacramento, and she's done fantastic work out there and also here in Huichin with Mental Health First. This is an abolitionist mental health centered organization. And this is a quote from her that I really love. "Continuing the work of our ancestors on behalf of our children is the highest calling one can have." So love and appreciation to Asantewaa and Mental Health First, folks. Why do you want to do a land acknowledgement? This is something that I think a lot of folks kind of miss, but you don't have to be Indigenous to do one. In fact, all you have to know is who the Indigenous people are in the territories where you live and work. To support their sovereignty, of course, you can start with a land acknowledgement that just acknowledges them and their sovereignty. You can also undo that erasure, just by naming them and by talking about them, and then beginning that process of forming accountable relationships with the people of the lands that you live and work on. Again, that there aren't Native people and Indigenous people every single place in the world, but a lot of places there are. So if you can find those tribes and those people, do shout them out in your speaking engagements and in your events. We also, of course, want to acknowledge and appreciate, support the liberation work of people of African descent in our land acknowledgements, because often in the US, they're experiencing colonization and genocide here too. So there's a little bit about me. I wanted to start off as a Native person. We often talk about where we're from as a big part of our identity. So you can see the picture of my home village there, Inupiaq. It's on the west coast, northwest coast of Alaska, just south of Nome. On the coast there, it's tiny, as you can see. And that's a picture of my mom. That's Frieda McAlear. You can see her in the white collared shirt there in the middle of that middle picture. And she was a kid in her village. And there she is just a couple of years before she passed. I did not grow up on my territories. This is something I just wanted to mention. But of course, I've been back to my village many times and stay connected to my relatives there. I never used to talk about this, but I've started this year to talk about my other parent. So this is a picture of James McAlear, my dad. He passed a lot sooner than my mom did, but he had a really fascinating career that I don't have a lot of time to get into. But he was one of the forerunners of a technology that's still being worked on today and developed today. He was a biophysicist or bioengineer. He worked in genetics, and his main drive in life was to create a biological chip, a microchip. In fact, really a nanochip built from molecular materials that was self-assemble. So he had a lot of money from like DARPA and government contracts. So I just wanted to background this as context for some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today. So I wanted to get us going with some audience chat. I know that we have a long 3 hours ahead, but I wanted to start off just by asking you all what you think the role of technology is in creating, maintaining, sustaining colonies and empires. And this is a question, it's an open question, there's no right answer. Go ahead and feel free to put in the chat. Ooh, I did go outside just to see if I could go into the chat, but let me go ahead and open up the chat window instead. There we go. If you can take a second and just think through, like, what is that role that technology's played in colonization in the US? And that's going to be part of my talk today. So go ahead and think about that. You can use GIFs, you can use emojis, you can discuss the different roles that technology plays in ongoing colonization today, as a communication network. It's really up to you. So I see no incoming chats, but please do keep this in mind as we keep going. Please keep putting your responses in the chat for me if you can. Okay, let me go ahead and talk a little bit about why this is important. So we talk a lot about technology solving problems. We don't often talk about the issues related to technology in terms of Native territories. And so this is something that I'm trying to speak more about, because I think there's a lot of erasure of the impact of technology on Native territories in particular. And this isn't just, of course, exclusive to the US. This is a lot of different places in the world. But I wanted to focus on the US context, as that's where a lot of us are based. Mining and extraction on Native lands is not something that's openly discussed in our field. But there was a report that was published last year from an outfit called MSCI that really talked about where the existing and the existing mines and the current reserves are for a lot of the minerals that base the foundation of a lot of technological work and industries. And so if you're looking at cobalt, copper, lithium, and nickel, these minerals are located often either within Native American territories or adjacent to them. And so you can see this is a real attempt to map that out, with the green representing Native territories with a little buffer area around them, the yellow being these mines inside of the buffer, and the red dots meaning where the mines that are located that are outside of that buffer. You can see the majority of these mines are truly within Native territories. Of course, the entire US is Native. It's another discussion, but there's of course where the current day reservations are. This has huge and lifelong and intergenerational impacts on our communities. So if you look at how mining has impacted folks, particularly in the West, where I'm based, more than a century of hard rock mining here, this is a report from 2017, left a legacy of over 160,000 abandoned mines in the West that are a home to the majority of Native American lands. So you can really see here in this like dark red color where all of these mines have been left and abandoned. The results of their study show that Native Americans living near these abandoned uranium mines, in particular in this one study that they did, have an increased likelihood for kidney disease, hypertension, increased likelihood for developing multiple chronic diseases linked to their proximity to mine waste. So it really destroys the land and waters that we depend on. And you can see here this graphic from that study, particularly if you're looking at gold mining, that's incredibly in or near Native territories, and similarly has devastating impacts on our health. Beyond just our physical health, though, mines also create this culture, and they bring, a temporary and transient influx of non-Native, mostly cisgendered men to rural tribal areas and reservations to take part in this extractive industry. So a 2019 study from the Department of Justice found that in the Back and Oil region, again, out here in the West, Montana and North Dakota, oil drilling led to a 70% increase in violence in Native territories, a 30% increase in sexual violence and sex trafficking, and really contributed to this phenomenon we're calling today as Native people, MMIWG, which is murdered and missing Indigenous women. So you can look up that hashtag. If you haven't heard of this before, please do learn more about it. This is a discussion that we're having across territories in Turtle Island. So why I bring this up as background and context is because a lot of my work centers this idea of rematriation, not just in our land acknowledgement. Did I talk about this a little bit, but what are we talking about when we say rematriation? What does that word mean? So I'll give one definition here, and you'll see different ones, but essentially rematriation is restoring a people to their rightful place in sacred relationship with their ancestral land. So that's really not just getting our land back. It's important to get our land back, and we certainly want to do that. Beyond that, we want to restore that relationship, because often when we get our lands back, as you saw from the previous slides, the land has been degraded or destroyed. And so restoring our right relationship to that sacred land means bringing it under our stewardship and caretaking in the ways that we've known how, the ways that we developed for thousands of years. This process also centers the work of women and two-spirit, queer and trans people in our tribes in the creation and nurturance of life. So that restoring of right relationship is bringing this gender balance that you don't often see both in mining and in tech and in CS Ed. And it can look like housing for Native people, restoring of Native languages, the cultural ceremonies, art revitalization. Of course, I'm sure this is a big topic with all of you. The climate response that's necessary to weather what's coming in terms of climate change and what's already here in many cases, out here in the West especially, the medicines and healing that we need to deal with this intergenerational trauma left from all this degradation of our cultures and lands, and then these traditional knowledges to bring the lands back to life. I couldn't talk about rematriation without talking about Lishan Ohlone leader Karina Gold. She again is one of the spokespeople out here in the territories that I live and work on, so I'm accountable to her. She says that's the problem, that men have been in charge of land for so long that this is what's happened to the world. Men have treated women's bodies the same way they treat the lands. So I wanted to connect this and ground this in some of the work that's happening, not just in my project, but in other places and other native territories, because this is ongoing work to tie these together, to tie these narratives of rematriation and computer science education and tech. So I am the co-PI of a project. That's me with my co-PI, Dr. Kathy Deerenwater from AISES. And so we started a project a few years ago. We just got funded by the NSF last year to provide Native serving schools with a sequence of 3 culturally revitalizing project-based computer science courses designed to engage Native American students and especially girls. So I'm super excited about the work that we're doing. We are just getting started. We're expanding every year. I also wanted to highlight a Native youth, a Native woman youth who is doing fantastic work out in the STEAM Connection world. If you look up the STEAM Connection, you'll find Danielle Boyer. She's an Ojibwe Sault Ste. Marie tribe member, and she started making these robotic kits out of a passion for learning about technology as a Native youth. So she started making the ECGAR robots. You'll see the green robot there on the left. And originally the design was, a lightweight, cheap, molded plastic, and that's how she sort of created the base of the kit, the first kit. But over the last couple of years, this was really started only 2 years ago when she was 18. She's now 20, and she realized that, of course, all of these materials that she's sending out become toxic trash eventually, right? There's really no viable way to recover that much from plastic. With it takes a lot of time, energy, and money to do that. So she started making this kind of biodegradable plant-based cardboard paste that hardens in the same molds that she was printing these plastic robot kits with. And so she was able to create a much more, environmentally friendly type of robot that she could send out to youth. Doesn't need an internet connection. It's a maker-friendly idea. If you want to check her out, the STEAM Connection is a fantastic place to look. I also wanted to highlight the work of Marlena Miles. This is another youth who's doing fantastic work. I saw some of you were out there in Minnesota. So she is in the St. Paul region, and she's created this exhibit that's up today. I mean, I think it's open this summer. It's a Dakota Spirit Walk. She's from the Spirit Lake Dakota tribe. And as another youth, she's really thought about how to use augmented reality in this app that you could walk around this nature sanctuary there, downtown St. Paul, and really connect with the stories of the Dakota people through her work, through the visuals that are created inside of the AR world that she's developed. And these are traditional stories, and they relate to the sacred sites there on that sanctuary. She's also done this fantastic work. I just wanted to highlight this in brief, even though it's not a huge tech project, but she is an artist who's created a map of the sacred sites and all of the native names, the original names of the Minneapolis-St. Paul region. And I just love her work so much. So you can check out her work through that link there if you wanted to see more of what she's done, and that PDF is freely available. So I wanted to, as I'm wrapping up here in a few minutes, I just wanted to ask you all, again, what role would technology and computing play if abolition, rematriation, and Black liberation were achieved? These I think are important concepts for us to start focusing on collectively. If you believe in the freedom and self-determination of our people, what would technology and computing look like? Or you can also put this in the chat, or let us know if you think that technology doesn't have a role to play there, or if it's really sort of the dismantling of some of these technologies or a different approach to technology that we would really need to take. I'm so interested in hearing what you have to think about it. I'll share a couple of ideas as I'm winding down my time here. So one is that rematriation of tech and computer science education would really have to involve a very different holistic approach to how we're doing the work that we're doing. It would have to examine the quality and strength of relations between all of the beings and even the non-living beings in the production and use of technology. This is not something we're conditioned to think about in our culture, about there being non-living beings that are impacted by our lives and our work and the devices that we use every day. So are their sovereignties and self-determination respected? And that goes down to the tribal sovereignty of the lands, where that technology is employed or made, the body sovereignty and radical consent needed to work with those tribes, the reproductive sovereignty, of course, centering women nurturers of life, the self-determination and justice of all the colonized people involved in the making of that technology. Of course, ideally they wouldn't be colonized, but that self-determination and justice would need to be centered as well in order to undo these centuries of harm. The water sovereignty, the cultural and language revitalization, the food sovereignty, our medicine ceremonies, our healers, these would all have to be part of a holistic approach for rematriating tech and CS education. I'd like to also circle back, my dad was spent a lot of his productive working life trying to advance technologies that were funded by DARPA and that had this, this kind of this techno-humanism, approach to creating biologically implanted chips or biological material chips. And one of the things that I really appreciated as I was coming up and doing my degree in CS and then getting into CS education was that there weren't many people really speaking out against that side of the field, the innovation side that might not prioritize, human agency that was being developed by a very narrow set of like white cis men. And so I've really become a big fan of Dr. Timnit Gebru and her work and really thinking through, what these newer technologies mean for communities and how they're being developed and the ethical side of their development. So I have a quote from her to help close us out today. If there is an AI to be built or researched, how do you do it well? You want to involve communities that are usually at the margin so that they can benefit. When there's cases when it should not be built, we can say, well, this should not be built. We're not coming at it from a perspective of tech solutionism. So I just really wanted to appreciate her work today and give her a shout out as part of this talk. If you would like to learn more about power and CS and tech, of course, I'm sure a lot of you are already on this journey, but there's some resources out here that I'm putting into circulation today. So this is the Equitable CS Curriculum Initiative, which is part of the Kapor Center's work. You can find it there. It was released last year, and it really has a powerful guide for thinking through how you teach equitable CS. Radical AI has also put out a technology and power curriculum that I like a lot, came out 2 years ago. And there's an Indigenous protocol and artificial intelligence position paper that again, just kind of reinforces these ideas that we've talked a little bit about today about self-determination and sovereignty being at the center of how we feel about some of these technologies. Please do connect with me. There's my email handle, there's my Twitter account. Please do stay connected. I'll be in the lobby after this to chat with you all as well. And I just wanted to thank some of our partners for the funding and support they provided, the National Science Foundation Representation Coalition and Comcast NBCU for funding the Seeding Innovations Project. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. So good to be here with you today. Enjoy the rest of your festival.